next panel. The next panel is diversity in gaming. So I have an awesome lineup of speakers to talk about that. Diversity in gaming is very important and needs to happen more often. So, so we have an awesome lineup of speakers here to talk to you about that. First of all, how's everyone doing today? All right, good. It's an awesome conference. Second year. Give it up to UCLA and Jay and the team for putting this together. It's great to have sports and gaming all together in one spot here at the Pauley Pavilion at a sports pavilion. My name is Kevin Winston, and I'm founder of Digital LA. We organize entertainment tech panels all the time around topics, including gaming, of course. So let's give it up for our speakers, who will introduce ourselves with their name, their company, what they do briefly, and something fun that they've done in the past week. Starting with Anne.
Hi, I'm Anne Toole. I am a writer of games. I write the narrative and dialogue for games such as The Witcher, Horizon Zero Dawn, Assassin's Creed Origins, and I'm trying to think of the silliest one, ESPN Sports Bar. Hey, we're at a sports conference, so yes. Oh, and I also wrote on NBA Live 2019. So there you go. I got
Who's heard or played some of those games before? Yes, we got some game fans. So she helped make them right here, writing them. So, okay. And something fun you've done in the past week?
I have been on the SAG picket line, and I mention that because it is fun to fight for workers' rights and also eat like free fat burgers and ice cream and like poutine. So I'm hoping it'll be resolved next week.
You got poutine?
I got poutine.
Free poutine?
Yeah. No, there was a poutine truck. Rene Balsay is a French Canadian, and so he sponsors this poutine truck that like pops up every now and then. So yeah. So I'm hoping it'll be done soon so I can start losing weight again.
Awesome. Next up, Torian.
Hello, everyone. My name is Torian Brackett. I am a voice actor. I live out here in LA, so I've been working on World of Warcraft recently, Fallout, Warframe. Coming out next month is The Walking Dead Destinies. I'm playing Morgan in that, so very excited about that. And yeah, working on things that Anne is writing, and getting to be involved in that process is really cool for me as a gamer myself. So I was really excited when I heard about this conference. So.
Who's heard of some of those games? Yes, awesome.
And something fun I did. Last night I was at Universal Horror Nights. I barely survived, so we're here.
Yeah, I did that too. The Last of Us, which is based on a game as well, that Naughty Dog, based in Santa Monica. That was a good base. That was good, very scary. All right, cool. Next up.
Hi, I am Darian Lowenstein. I am a full-time consultant. I run a company called Secret Code. My background is producing and directing video games, which I've been doing now for 27 years. I produced at Rockstar Games on stuff like Red Dead Revolver, Midnight Club. I produced at EA, Medal of Honor, Simpsons Tapped Out, NBA Jam, NBA Elite, Madden, Tiger Woods Golf, ton of stuff there. And I also produced at Activision, including Transformers War for Cybertron. Full-time nerd, still a huge gamer. I tried to get a Crown Vic in Fortnite last night, and I got killed at second. It sucked. So that wasn't fun, but what was fun is I was at the Pink concert before that, and Alanis Morissette came out on stage, and they sang You Ought to Know Together, which was like a full 90s teenage angst come to life, and that was amazing.
Very cool. Thank you. Next up, Nathan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nathan. I go as online called Nathan Live. I'm a Minecraft streamer, a full-time YouTuber. I'm also a Twitch partner. I actually just got back from Dallas, attending an event called Viz Summit, where I was able to have the honor to talk to the biggest YouTuber called Mr. Beast, or some people you guys might have heard of. His name is Ryan Trahan. He's also very, very big on YouTube as well. So that's what I've been doing.
All right, cool. So we're here to talk about diversity in gaming. That includes genders, that includes LGBTQ, that includes different ethnic diversity as well. So just get into it by basically having you tell your stories on how you got into the gaming industry. These stories tend to be inspirational and informative as well. And it's always just fun to hear how people got in. So let's actually go in reverse. Nathan, you want to start how you started to get into streaming?
Yes, so ever since I was a little kid, I was obsessed with YouTube. I'm actually born in China, raised in China, and one day I magically discovered YouTube because I really all the sides was unfortunately blocked there, but because I was so curious growing up, I discovered YouTube. Ever since that, I wanted to be a YouTuber. For the first 4 years of my online presence, I was doing vlog, but when COVID hit, I have nowhere else to do any content or go anywhere to produce these videos, so I decided to play video games at home. And I was telling myself, if I'm spending time playing video games, why don't I just start streaming or make videos about the game I'm playing? So that's how I got into the gaming. And surprisingly, I got really, really big on all the platforms. And I just keep doing it.
So how'd you do that? That's the big thing, because a lot of people are on all these sites. But at what point did you cross over? Or was there a big event that happened that made you suddenly like, oh, I have a lot of views, and oh, I can make money off of this. Oh, I could have this as my job.
Yeah, I always know that doing Twitch makes you money, but I also know how hard it is to make a comfortable living with that. So I was just going with the flow, and I just say whatever I can think of, and to tell my viewers or do some crazy reaction, and then they love it, and they wanted to continue to support me, and things like a snowball just start growing more and more.
Your authentic self online, and that. Can you give an example of like how you might interact with your viewers that made them like really into it?
Yeah. I whenever I rage, dying in Minecraft hardcore world, I would ban on my desk. I would start jumping all over in the room, and I will just go crazy.
Could you give us an example of that?
Oh my god. All right, I hope you guys don't get scared.
You guys want to see him, how he does it on stream? Yes. All right. If it works to get more attention on his stream, it'll work at a panel at the Pauley Pavilion.
So,
go!
Let's say if I play Fortnite, die. Ah! Why did I just die? I would just do something like that, and everybody will go crazy. And that's where the subscription comes into my channel.
So the crazier he gets, the more money he gets, because people want to see him go nuts. So.
Do you sometimes forget where you are, so you're like standing in line and like something happens and you're like, oh wait, no, I'm just in real life right now?
No, because the only thing that triggers me is dying in the game.
Raging is a universal gamer experience, so that's why everybody relates so much.
You get paid to game rage. All right, awesome. All right, next up.
I got started reviewing games, actually. My dad contacted all the newspapers in Oregon where I grew up. I grew up on a small area in the woods on 50 acres, was homeschooled, had this like very unique childhood on a ranch, and always loved to play video games. And so my dad really supported my habit, got me that first job reviewing games, and then contacted all the newspapers in Oregon about me, and for some reason, 2 of them came out and did cover page stories on me. I have no idea to this day why. And that led to Dynamics, which is a part of Sierra Online, a game company that is now since dead, basically calling me and saying, hey, we'd like to offer Darian a job as a tester, which is the way that a lot of people get started in the industry. And I said, great, I'm 15. Can we wait 9 months till I get my driver's license? So at 16, I moved out of home, and I started working my way up through the industry, testing games, then worked my way up through producer, director, VP, CMO, and never spent a day in college, actually. I just worked my way up from the ground up.
All right, cool. Awesome. Thanks. All right, next up.
Well, I have been acting for about a decade now. I kind of caught the bug doing undergrad back in New York, where I'm originally from, in college. I had big dreams of being on Broadway, and so after I graduated, I was bopping around the city doing a lot of smaller productions up until the pandemic, when New York completely shut down and there was nothing going on stage, so I really had to pivot. And at that point is when voice acting really kind of got on my radar. And so I really started doing audiobooks primarily, which I don't know if anyone here is a fan of audiobooks. Great. But that kind of pivoted into gaming as well, and just, voice acting touches all areas of business and advertisement, gaming included. So there's a lot of opportunity to really stretch your abilities as an actor. And so I really found that it was something that stuck for me. And so for those 3 years that I was still in New York, or maybe like 2.5, I was just doing a lot of audiobooks, a lot of gaming, and then moved out to LA to really push for it. And that's when things like World of Warcraft started happening, things like Fallout and all these bigger titles. So, yeah.
So did you create a reel of you doing different voices to get those jobs, or how did that work? Through an agent? How does that work?
Yeah, there's a lot of different pathways. Demos are really great, especially if you're looking for representation with an agent. You want to have some kind of calling card that shows what you can do as an actor. So I did create a few samples, especially for narration when I was starting out. And then when I was getting more confident in my abilities, making a gaming demo, making a narration demo, making a commercial demo, because again, you gotta diversify. Not a lot of people do just one thing when it comes to voice acting. You're doing all manner of stuff, because you gotta make your money somewhere.
So Nathan gave us a demo of his live streaming. Are there any voices that you can do, either from a game or just something that you have as a calling card when people might ask you on a panel to do one of your voices?
Well, if you are a current World of Warcraft player, you might be familiar.
Play World of Warcraft here? All right.
Yeah, there's a character in Orgrimmar who runs the trading post that gets updated every month. His name is Zenkala. He's a troll. And he's always happy to see the heroes. Welcome to my trading post. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Awesome, thank you. Anne, how'd you get into writing?
So I started in television. So I always tell people don't do what I did because getting into TV is way harder than getting into games, at least when I started. And the first time I got a freelance in games was I went to an event that was literally like right next to, I live in West Hollywood, I live right by the London, please don't stalk me. And there was an event on the roof and I was walking around and there was a game company. I was like, hey, if you ever need a writer. And I sent them a TV sample, and when they needed somebody, they called me on a Friday and they said, what are you doing this weekend? And I'm like, what would you like me to be doing this weekend? So they needed a polish, a rewrite, if you will, for their game because they were going to...
They called it a polish?
The polish is
a fancy way to say rewrite?
No, polish is a light pass, and a rewrite is like a serious rewrite. So it's somewhere between a rewrite and a polish. It was pretty much a rewrite, but so they were starting voice recording, I guess, that Monday, and they needed it rewritten like straight away. So that's what I did. And the next time I got a big game job, I was hired as the lead writer for a game based on the Stargate SG-1 TV series. And I was like, this is way more my jam. And for that, again, I used my TV sample. I also wrote a game sample in their universe because that's what they asked for. But you know, I use TV samples to break in, and now, ironically, I want to use my game samples to break back into TV. So see if anyone bites.
All right, thank you for sharing these stories. Next question is, within the realm of gaming, there are different diversity-related groups or organizations or Facebook groups. Are you a member of any, and how do they help with your career, or what are some good ones?
Well, I have to plug the IGDA, the International Game Developers Association. I am, I guess, acting chair of the Women in Games SIG, and previously I was on the board of the international main board, and there are a lot of SIGs that are involved in there. There's obviously the Women in Games one. I think there's so many that I can't even remember them all, and sometimes they're based on a diversity element, but sometimes it's like the producer's SIG or the game designer SIG, so you can even focus on that. And there is a chapter in LA, so it's IGDA LA. I'm also involved with, I have historically been involved with WIGI, which is Women in Games International, which is a completely different organization, but it's got a very similar name. And there's a bunch of, there's so many. There's this one called Pixels in Montreal, so for a Montreal person. And that's, you know, focuses on getting women in games, but I think I don't know for sure, but they may include everybody in that. They have like lots of good programs. And the IGDA has these sort of like mentorship group things. So you apply and then you can go to GDC, the Game Developers Conference in March, and they will like put you up, they will fly you out there, you go and you tour all these game companies, and they hook you up with people to meet with and assign you a mentor, and they have those for various events. DICE, which the interactive, it's like the TV Academy except for games. I forget what it's called, but they have something similar. So there's a lot of programs out there that are specifically about, like, you can apply, they fly you out for a conference, you network. I've been a mentor at DICE 1 year. So there's lots of options out there, and a good Google search will turn them up. So yeah, there are a bunch.
Or take notes for what Anne just said.
It's the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yay. All right, next up, are you involved in any groups or?
Yeah, I think coming from the talent side, there's always the question of like authentic casting and having, proper representation in your projects. And so, especially during the pandemic, when it became very cool to hire people of color for all your things and have that going on, there were a lot of groups that emerged out of that. So one I'm a part of is QueerVox, which is specifically for voice actors from the LGBT community, as well as Voices of Color. You can find that at voctakeover.com. Which is basically just offering a resource for people who are hiring to find voice actors from these communities so you can more accurately reflect what the world looks like in your project. So those are two that I would definitely call out.
Could you repeat those again?
QueerVox and Voices of Color. Yeah.
All right, cool, thanks.
Diversity has been a huge problem in gaming since I started. My first official year in gaming, I think it was 1996 or 97. And it was very clear at my first job that it was very much a straight white male dominated field, to the point of like the first game company was probably, I'd say, about 90% straight white male. So the lack of diversity is problematic on so many levels. And I think that companies are now in a state where they're realizing that those decision makers have strayed far from where the actual audience is, because the actual audience, the people that are consuming and buying games around the world, are so incredibly diverse. So there has been a lot of work in the industry the last few years. We have a long ways to go, but every time I'm at GDC, I'm filled with a lot of excitement, because the Indie Games Pavilion is increasingly other. It's everything else. It's all kinds of people from all walks of life, and it's awesome to see that coming up through, especially through the younger ranks, and now filtering in through more pieces of gaming. The groups that I've found to be helpful, I'm in BAFTA, and they're doing a lot of work in diversity throughout television, film, and games. That's been really helpful. I was a co-founder of GLAD Gaming. GLAD does a lot of work throughout TV and film, and now they're doing a lot of work in gaming.
What is GLAD?
GLAD is the, oh God, I'm gonna mess up the acronyms. It's the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. But they do a ton of work in media, and they have been for many, many years. And they have done a ton of work in gaming. So we created the first award in 2018, I believe it was, to represent diversity in gaming. And so that gave the big game companies, Activision, EA, an award to strive for. So as opposed to just doing the right thing and having characters that are diverse, we actually started having awards for these big companies to chase. Having worked at most of those big companies, I think that you have to come up with multiple layers to attack this problem. But luckily there are a lot of groups that I think are coming up, like IGDA does a lot of work with diversity, and there's a lot of programs that are out there for people who are other, to help lift them up and give them a chance at that managerial spot, to give them executive training, to give them speaking training, so they have a chance of growing within the industry.
What are some examples of games that have won the award for diversity in gaming, and what were you looking for in the game?
You know, I worked on forming the council, but I didn't actually put forth the games. That's a different committee. So because I'm still developing and everything, I'm separate from it. But we have given out awards to multiple different games in the past. Last of Us, I'm sure everybody's familiar with Ellie and her story. We gave out an award to a really amazing game on Xbox, I'm spacing on the name of, that featured a trans protagonist character in the main role. So there's been some good ones.
Because representation within the game is also as important as the people making the games too. So awesome, thank you.
Exactly.
Nathan.
Yeah, on top of that, I feel like community is also very important. I don't know if anybody here familiar with any Minecraft community, especially when it comes to creators, but Minecraft is a very, very diverse and it's a very tolerant community towards LGBTQ community, people of different color, or no matter where they're from or any status. So when it comes to creator, this is something I noticed as I slowly transition into that community, is that a lot of people are very comfortable about who they are, and they're also very confident. And I think that's one thing, speaking of diversity, how they made this game more and more popular and why there's more people love the game as well.
Gotcha. Because, yeah, like you were saying, the game has to be diverse with diverse characters because the world is becoming more diverse. And that's part of the reason for the popularity of Activision Blizzard's game with all the very super diverse characters.
Overwatch. One of the best
yeah.
examples of authentic diversity in a fun game. I've been playing that game since it came out, and the characters are authentic. It's cool because I think no matter who you are, you have a chance to see someone that sort of represents you or someone like you within Overwatch. It's such a beautiful, authentic, diverse array of characters to play. Blizzard has a lot of issues working internally. That's not so great, a little toxic. Been in the press a bit for a few years now. But their game is great.
In Overwatch, I like Winston because my last name is Winston, and he's the ape that goes red when he turns rageful, which red's my favorite color. By the way, I'm wearing Spider-Man red because the new Spider-Man 2 game is coming out. Who's looking forward to that on PS5? So yeah, in 2 weeks that's going to come out. So in honor of that, I'm wearing my Under Armour Spider-Man because Under Armour for sports at a sports conference and Spider-Man for games. All right, any questions from the audience? Let's go right to questions. Who's got questions? You want to ask a question? Okay. Wait. Anybody else have questions? Oh yes. Okay. Cool. All right. Question from Lincoln, who's one of the organizers of the conference. Thanks for having us, Lincoln.
Hi everyone. Thanks for coming. I have a question around how you see diversity from when you started versus now, and what areas you think are still in need of the most improvement.
Where to start?
Everything.
Oh my God. Yeah, so I think as Darian was saying, and probably everybody was saying, is when we started, it wasn't a particularly diverse industry, and there have been strides for sure, but it's still not there. So I think the statistics for women in games is around 22%, 24%, somewhere in there, and also the breakdown of how of the jobs they take. So for whatever reason, artists tends to be a lot of women. It's very heavily women as opposed to engineering, just to do a stereotype. And I've also heard you'll look at a company and you'll be like, oh, there's good Asian representation, but it's all in engineering and it's not in the creative. So it's stuff like that. And then of course, the people making the decisions are often cis white straight men, and that's where the sort of disconnect with the representation versus who's making the decisions. So the games are starting to look more diverse. So I worked on Horizon Zero Dawn. The main character is this female character, and it's yay, revolutionary AAA with a main female character. Who was making the decisions behind that game? I won't answer that question, but I'm sure you can draw your own conclusion. So there's a little bit of that, and that's Darian also meant. I'm just going to echo Darian the whole time. Darian pointed out that you go to these indie games, and it is incredibly diverse, the people who are making indie games, but they're not making a living doing that, right? They're putting together $1.25 and hoping they can make it happen, because the way to make a living is to have a job and work at a quote unquote real company. So that's one of the struggles. And someone just posted this on Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, either yesterday or the day before. They showed a Bungie picture before and after, and before it was a lot of dudes from whenever Bungie was founded, and then they said after, and clearly this wasn't the entire Bungie membership, but it was all these women. So presumably it was, a picture of women at Bungie. But the issue was, again, anybody can be white presenting, so they could have been very diverse. They just looked super white. Like everyone looked white. I was like, so there's that tendency. It's like, and someone posted, it's like we can see who's getting the benefit of those diversity programs, and you know, no shade to myself, but like white women are like right there, right behind white men. So I think there's this tendency to be like, okay, we found a woman, we're diverse, but they are not like trying to be more inclusive beyond that. So like definitely like a more 2.0 version of that. And I've never hired somebody by myself, but like, you know, it can be hard to track people down, but people need to think about that early. Like I remember I was in this group and they hired this guy, and someone gave him shade. It's like, you know, why did you hire this guy? And he's like, I had a week to fill the role. And I didn't say this because I didn't want to say anything. I was like, how long have you been in the industry? He was like 25 years in the industry. I was like, no, you had 25 years to fill that role. Like, you should have been digging your well before you're thirsty. So that's what I do. I'm always trying to meet different people, even though I'm not in a hiring position. Like, I might know somebody, right? Like, and I always want to be in a position where I can like refer people. And related to that, coming up, I would get referred jobs if it was about a woman, right? Like, oh, this is featuring a woman here. That's great. I will take a job. I'm not going to be mad about that. But it was never like, oh, this is featuring a male character. You know, it's never that mainstream stuff unless it was specifically about my background, and as opposed to a guy. Like I've seen this all the time, where they'll refer anything to him. So trying to be more inclusive about like job referrals. I'm sorry, I did go off.
That's okay, you got something to say. You can say it here.
My first console was the Sega Genesis, so I'm very well researched on this topic. And I can tell you, maybe within the last 3 years is when I started to see a diversity in just hairstyles for the characters we can pick for ourselves in MMOs and other games where you kind of create your own character. And that's not good to be playing with, like, oh, you can pick an afro and cornrows and that's it. So, you know, being able to see yourself reflected in games is hugely important for people of different communities. And I think people can, you know, kind of get defensive about it, but it's not coming from a malicious place. It's just like, it's a blind spot, and it's an opportunity for you to grow and expand your horizons. So, yes, within the game, you should see that, and that has to come from within your development team as well. If you have people on your team that look like the people that you're trying to put into your world, it's gonna reflect. It's gonna be a lot easier for you to do that. So I think people really need to put that effort in, because it's still a problem even in 2023, unfortunately.
You know, it's a tough issue too, because it affects all layers of a company in terms of it's throughout its management, its dev teams, it's hiring. People tend to want to hire people they know, and especially right now, the market's really rough. There's been thousands of people laid off every month in the industry, so there's a lot more people looking than there are jobs. And so people, when they have 1,000 applications, for one of my clients, I just started hiring a lead artist, and we had like over 1,000 applications in like 48 hours for lead artist role that's part-time on a startup project. Like the market is awful right now, so people tend to want to hire people they know. So it creates like a kind of a compounding problem throughout all layers. I was directing a commercial for a big AAA project about 5 years ago, and I told the agency I was working with, hey, I want a really diverse cast. I'm appealing to this huge range of people. I need age ranges, ethnicities, orientations. I need everything, right? So they sent me this like lookbook of actors and models, and it was about 50 people, and there were 3 people with a skin tone other than white. And I was like, hold on, 50 people? That's what you're giving me? What's going on? They're like, we've got some diversity in there. They're like happy, they're like proud. They're like, okay, this is not okay. But it's again, there were 5 white guys who were on that marketing team at that agency who I was working with, right? So it's all these different layers, and those things do not change overnight. I think people are a lot more aware of this than they were 5 or 6 years ago. But I feel like there's still a tendency for people to go with what's comfortable and hiring people that they know and the things that they know. And so I think we just have to keep pushing at this in all layers, and anybody who is in a position of hiring or creating content needs to take up those reins of trying to increase a diverse workforce and representation in games.
Yeah, I agree. Everything you just said. Before, when the COVID just started, when I just started streaming on Twitch, I was competitively playing Fortnite. At the time I wasn't really notice any diverse, or I never really think about it. But until I transitioned into Minecraft, that's where I realized, oh wow, there's a lot of people out there that I guess I never even consider, their community or who they identify themselves with or what they think they're part of. So to answer your question, I guess I'm not in this gaming that long to notice a difference. But as for right now, I feel like everything is getting improved and everything is getting slowly better for the creators and even the social media platform where they're pushing to have them.
I mean, the interesting thing is like all forms. Like we had a lot of people in Hollywood going, "Oh my God, women go to see films when Bridesmaids came out, right? When Black Panther came out, they're like, wait, black people go to see films other than Medea? This is amazing." Like, well, yeah, no shit. You make good content, and people are going to show up. And I've seen that happen in streaming, like with the rise of Kai Cenat, right, on Twitch, with millions of followers, able to shut down New York by announcing, not so smartly, that he was giving away PS5s. Not the greatest move, but a huge following of really loyal followers, right? And so I think that those numbers, right, those metrics are what cause people at the very top of these multi-billion-dollar corporations to go, oh, well, that's a good audience. Maybe we should do something for that.
We've been here the whole time. The whole time.
Woo! All right, great. So what can people in the audience do to help support diversity in gaming? Everything from following you guys all on social media, perhaps, to following other diverse creators or people in games. What are some things that people can do? Anybody in the audience can participate as well.
Support the content that is representing something that you identify with or you like or you enjoy. Spread the word. If there's an indie game that's cool, that has a unique story, unique characters, it comes from a cool team, like spread the word. You know, a lot of the things that diverse creators struggle with is just being heard. And a lot of the indie games that are out there that do tell the story from a character's perspective that may not be a straight white male or a straight white female struggle with getting the marketing campaigns. And unless they're getting a lot of support from a company like Xbox, which has been really forward with pushing different characters and storylines, a lot of those indie companies struggle to sell many copies and even just to exist from game to game.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, using your own platforms to kind of spread awareness about the huge set of options you have as far as content. You know, I've been playing as Chris Redfields and Leon Kennedys my whole life, and I can still enjoy myself. So maybe it can be the same on the opposite side. You never know what is out there for you until you give it a try. So definitely use your own platforms for that, and talk to people about what can be done. Use your communities. All these tools are available at your disposal.
Another thing you can do is, if you're already a fan of a particular game, involved in a fan community of any sort, is if you see poor representation or lack of representation, you can speak up and you can say, hey, why don't we add this kind of character to Overwatch? Or Overwatch is a bad example because they already have a bunch, but something else, because they'll listen, right? Especially if you're part of, yeah, right? At least in theory, they'll listen, because a lot of community managers, they do take the information and they pass it on to designers. It obviously depends on the company, so that's something you can definitely do. And if you have $1.25 and you care about the next generation of gamers, you can absolutely donate. The IGDA Foundation, which runs all the programs I mentioned, is a nonprofit, so you could donate to them. There's, what is it called? Black Girl Gamers, which is Black Girls Who Code. That's what I meant. Black Girls Who Code. That are teaching people for the next generation, for sure. But we've already proven that it's not a pipeline problem. It's definitely a hiring problem. But it can't hurt to get people excited at any stage of, from 6th grade on up to college, to get people involved.
Yeah, I definitely think Speak Out would be a really good idea. As a creator doing YouTube actually always rolled out these celebration or events for a specific group of people, and I was actually got invited to some like an Asian celebration. I actually forgot what it is, but it was really cool, to see that everybody gathered together and having the same interests, belong to that group. So I think it was really awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for sharing your stories and your inspirational ideas and how every day everyone can evolve to help improve diversity in gaming. For the last question is just basically, what are you working on next you can talk about, and give us your social media shout outs so we can follow you.
The next game that I have coming out is called Asgard's Wrath 2. It's for Quest 3? It's for one of the... I'm like, what number are we on? It's for Quest, and that's coming out in the middle of December. And you can reach me on Twitter or Blue Sky, formerly known as Twitter, or Blue Sky. My handle is AM as in Mary, ELY. Or on Instagram, you can just look by my name because it's long. It's just the right tool, but yeah, you can search.
You can find me on Twitter. I don't know who X is. You can find me on Twitter at TBVO. Next month, November 14th, I think it's releasing The Walking Dead Destinies. I'm very excited about that. I used to watch the show all the time, so playing Morgan is insane for me, so check it out. Yeah.
All right.
I can't talk about any of the projects that I'm working on in a typical games industry trope. So what I will say is I do talk about the industry a lot on TikTok, about how to get a career started, best ways to start your career, ways to get in the industry, etc. And on TikTok, I am DARIONL, Darian L.
Yeah, you guys can find me on all social media platforms at Nathan Live, NATHANLAVE. And if you guys have any question about social media, how to start it, how to make how to have a utilize game to make a content on any social media platform, feel free to DM me.
And I'm Kevin Winston at Digital LA. If you missed their Instagrams, just follow at Kevin Winston or at Digital LA. I'm going to post some of the photos that I've been running around taking of this panel. Awesome. So thank you all so much for great questions. Give a round of applause for our speakers.